Okay, then I'd like to call the Dunn County Standing Committee and Neighbors of Dunn County to order at 9 o'clock. We have a quorum. The only one missing is Gordy Wolf. So next up, we would have approval of the minutes.
Nope.
Okay, the minutes have been approved by Supervisor Laufer and seconded by Supervisor Story. All in favor? Aye. Is there any public comment today? Okay. And nothing at the request of the chair this time. And number 6, as usual, we'll go on to Carmen and a really fun one on number A, letter A.
All right. So as Chair Kinnear said, we have a fun one on letter A. So we have the introduction of our new clinical mentor. So those of you who've been on the committee for a while know that this position has turned over a couple times after having a very long-term person in the role. And then we had 2 others since then. But I'm happy to announce that Rebecca Proudlock will be promoted into that position. Rebecca has been with the county for quite a long time in many roles. So she started as a CNA and when this building was the Dunn County Healthcare Center. She has worked as a nurse on both nights and days, and then was an MDS nurse for a long time. And then her most recent role was an ACM, so the assistant clinical mentor for the central building, and now the clinical mentor for the neighbors. So we're happy to have her.
Yeah, welcome. And a CNA first.
Yeah.
That's what?
Yes, CNA first.
Was-
It's going to nursing school.
You're all okay. I got it. Well, I just want to say publicly, thank you for taking the job. And I think it's wonderful. And congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. So as always, we talk about the Quality Assurance Steering Committee updates. So our committee met 2 weeks ago now, a week ago. There wasn't anything out of the norm. We did review our pharmacy report this month and went over those for each building. So we do have a pharmacist that is contracted with us that does reviews of things like psychotropic medications, antibiotics, any sort of antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications to make sure we're not overprescribing those. Our docs aren't doing that. And then we also just go over any sort of drug changes, things like that. So he wasn't actually able to be there, but we did review the reports that he sent in to us. Besides that, we went over the West survey. Every time we have a survey, we review those survey results for 3 months and go over the audits. So we were on our 3rd month of that. So that will now fall off because we have not had any other problems to continue reviewing that. And I believe the report was from corporate compliance this month. So that is one of our subcommittees that goes over making sure we're following all the rules, laws, ethics, all of that fun stuff. We go over billing in that as well. So Laura heads that committee and she went over that report. Any questions for QA? Okay.
Nope, guess not.
All right, and Chris is online to do the employment report.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
We can hear you.
Perfect. So for the employment activity report for February, the types of recruitment are the same as they have been. If we go down to number of interviews, we did 5 direct hire interviews, no agency interviews. Positions offered 5, positions accepted 4. We skipped down to resignation reasons. It's kind of a wash from what we hired to what we off-boarded. So 2 part-time CNAs left. It was just basically school, family type schedules. A couple of homemakers left just for some personal reasons. And then, of course, our former DON had left during the month of February. So if we go down to open positions, those would be adjusted as such. If we go down to work comp lost hours, no lost hours for the month of February. A number of missed shifts due to COVID positives for February was only 4. So that was nice.
Chris,
Yes.
in the past, we've talked about asking people why they're leaving, and it's nice to see the resignation reasons. For example, two part-time homemakers left because of personal reasons. Now, do they tell you the personal reasons, or do they have anything to do with the neighbors?
I can't discuss what they leave for those. Like I said, they're personal reasons, so they um, left them, but I can't disclose what they are.
Yeah, I don't want you to disclose them, but do they share them with you?
Yes.
Okay, so if it was something that the neighbors could change in order to help keep people, you would know about it.
Yes, the neighbors does an exit interview with all people leaving. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Supervisor Story.
Chris, I had a question as well. Sometimes I think you've done some seminars or times where people could come in, like a job session. I'm trying to think of what it's called.
Like an
Is
open
there
house
anything?
job fair type thing.
Yeah, because I see 24 of those positions are with an agency, which means I know that's a little more expensive than if we had them, not with an agency. So I guess I was wondering if there was anything planned to do something like that in the future, or if it's just that the numbers are so bad with people not doing it out there that it probably wouldn't be worth our while to do it at this point in time, or?
I wouldn't venture to say it's not worth our while. What I have done is some job fairs at the high school. Sometimes if we grab them in as co-op students, a few of them have turned into long-term employees. So even if you spend a half a day at a job fair and end up with two people, you're still two people ahead.
Okay.
So, and typically those are like late spring, kind of when they're
Uh-huh.
getting gearing up towards like graduation. They're thinking about graduation, secondary education, that type of thing is typically when they do the job fairs.
So are you thinking about doing that then this spring?
I would attend it at the Menominee High School. So the
Okay,
smaller schools
okay.
around typically don't have a whole lot of that, but the Menominee High School does. The last one I went to, we did CVTC. We've done that one in the past.
Uh-huh.
That one's kind of a hard sell because the the demographic we're going after is nursing students, and they pretty much all have jobs. So it's
Okay.
I mean, if they want a job, they have a job. So that's kind of the one that's kind of a wash to go to. But the high school one I do go to. I think the county goes to that one as a whole also.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
can speak a little bit to it too. When we had, the last time we did an internal like job hiring day open house kind of thing, was after the HSHS closures. Cause we knew a lot of people would be without jobs, thought of putting our name out there. We did, I believe, 2 full days of it, and we had one person come in, and they came in and they did not know what we offered as jobs, and it wasn't something they were looking for. So, we've done it in the past. They haven't been very successful. The job fairs have been more successful.
Thank you. Anything else? Nope. Carmen?
All right. Next on the agenda is the CNA training program. I don't know if if you would like me to keep this on the agenda, as we don't typically have a lot of updates besides that it's still going. I don't know if you'd prefer if I only put it on there if there was something to share, but it is still going. There's a class going currently, so they're there on the PMs, and you still are utilizing Arrowhead and then doing clinicals in the households.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Resident referral reports, that is also in your packet. So we started the month of February with 106 residents. We had 73 referrals. We admitted 16. We had 57 not admitted. We had 106 at the end of the month. We had 0 residents transferred to another facility. We had 8 deaths this month, which is a higher number, but it just kind of ebbs and flows. And then we had 1 resident discharge home. So you'll notice that the numbers don't exactly equate out, and that's due to days of admission and days of might be at the end and beginning of a month as well. So it's kind of when you run the numbers, sometimes it doesn't work exactly. But and then our referral sources, we're pretty much the same. The only thing that you'll see on there that's a little bit different is other area nursing homes. We have had quite a few residents come to us from another nursing home recently. That is due to when we had large COVID outbreaks and we weren't able to admit people that we would have been their first choice of a nursing home. They're from Menominee, things like that. They had to go other places when we couldn't admit people to the neighbors. So now that we are able to admit, as you saw in Chris's report, we have not had much for COVID recently, knock on wood. We've been open for admissions and had available rooms, so people have been coming to us when they can. So we have had, I think, 3 people from other nursing homes in the last month. So any questions on referrals?
Nope.
All right, and then I'll hand it over to Scott.
Good morning, everyone. I'll start out with my staff report that I handed out to you. Last meeting, Supervisor Lawfer had requested kind of a comparison with the geothermal maintenance and the boiler maintenance. So I put together itemized costs of components of the geothermal system that typically have to be replaced. Some are small, inexpensive. Others are larger, more expensive, more involved pieces to replace. We have 250 heat pumps outside of resident rooms and offices throughout all 3 buildings. Those are the ones that heat the resident rooms so that, that they have a specific temperature in each room, each office. We did have in the past a couple of vendors, outside vendors that came in and would do the repairs on these. And that was getting costly as we were having trouble finding someone to come in. The last company was out of Rice Lake. So we ended up paying travel time on that. So Brady went ahead and got his certification to handle refrigeration, and he learned a lot from that company. And Brady has been working on the heat pumps, doing repairs, replacements of compressors, doing all that stuff. He's done great. So you look at under geothermal system, I have it broke down into 2021, 2022, 23, and 24. 2023, we still had an outside vendor in there, and that number was getting up there higher. And you can see in 2024, it's all been Brady that's been doing in-house. So we brought that number down. Brady and I have worked together very hard at finding better pricing on parts, the components and compressors and stuff. With an outside vendor, they're going to mark those parts up and they'll cost more money for us. So we've been able to do that. We've been able to reduce the cost of the refrigerant. We've been able to purchase that ourselves. So if we need refrigerant, it's saving some money there per pound. So we've been working hard at that. The $85 an hour labor is what they were charging in the past for us. So we don't have that labor charge anymore. We have Brady's labor, which is budgeted for. So it helps out doing that. And he's had Bob, facility worker, that has been helping him out. So some of the things that he needs assistance on, he'll get help with. The heat pumps are not an easy thing to work on because they're up in the ceiling, packed in there tight. Sometimes they're a real chore to work on. But I think Brady has gotten good at it. He's getting it down where he does them a lot faster. So getting a lot of good experience. So if you look this over, have any questions, feel free to ask any questions. We'll see what we can get answered. As far as the boilers are used to supplement the geothermal system. When the geothermal can't pull more heat out of the ground, then the boilers are turned on to supplement that and maintain that temperature throughout the building so that it's working properly, not stressing on the heat pumps. Then the boilers are shut back down as temperatures rise up. So they're not used to fully heat a building like normal boilers would be, like in a system that has high pressure steam or is hydronic, then you're running hot water through those boilers and that's going out to coils to actually heat the rooms. This situation is heating the indoor geothermal loop. Yep. So it's a little bit different system. But as far as maintenance on the boilers, we've replaced some different parts on those and done some maintenance as far as cleaning the boilers. And I average it out. It's probably around $1,000 a year is what it has cost since those have been put into service.
Supervisor Story?
I just wanted to say, I really appreciate this report, and I guess I'm feeling, feeling good that we've got two people that are so experienced and are so good at looking at what needs to be done and finding the best way to do it and doing it for the best cost. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, Supervisor Laufer.
Yeah, I just want to thank you as well for this report and for what you guys do. I know it's not an easy job and like everything, parts keep going up. I know I
Yeah.
experienced the same thing, and that's out of our control as far as what we can do. I also in my business buy aftermarket stuff too, that try to save money on things and stuff, and then labor just keeps going up as well all the time. So
Yeah.
anything you can do in-house is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for doing that. And it saves the taxpayers a lot of money when we do it in-house and stuff. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I want to thank Carmen for being kind enough to take Mike and I through the facility last month after the meeting and show us the system that you have in place there and everything. That was very educational. And I want to thank you, Carmen, for doing that.
Yeah.
And taking the time to do that with us. Very much appreciated. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. You have anything to add on the geothermal system?
No, I guess as long as, if anyone has any questions or anything.
Supervisor Lyon?
I'm just wondering, what is the life expectancy on, for the boilers and the heat pumps?
So the boilers, life expectancy is probably 25 to 30 years from one put in service. It's all going to depend on how much they are used. As long as they're maintained and they're used some in the wintertime, because that's the only time they're used, they're going to, as long as they're maintained, cleaned, and keep running properly, they're going to last a long time. So I would say at least that 25 to 30 years would be a life expectancy on them. The heat pumps, that depends on a lot of factors. Sometimes those can get heated up. The compressors can get overheated, and that's what takes the compressor out. But the heat pumps themselves, they probably have a similar life expectancy, where you would look at having to replace the whole thing. You're going to have parts that are going to run. It's a mechanical thing. You're going to have some that you're going to replace, but the heat pumps themselves, the whole unit would last as long as you maintain it and keep it running.
So having the geothermal already in existence or built into the neighbors was a really good idea.
Yeah, definitely saving, with a geothermal system, you're going to have more costs, expense with your electricity.
Mhm,
You're not going to have the gas expense.
mhm.
That takes that right down.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else? Supervisor Laufer?
Are there fail safes on those pumps to when they overheat or when they get so hot, do they shut down then or not?
For the
To protect them,
compressors,
for protection on them.
I'll let Brady handle that one.
Yeah, there's thermal overloads on the compressors. So a lot of times it's just the compressors still get overworked and, they work really hard on heating instead of cooling. So, they do it, the thermal breaks do work, but it's more for, it does shut them down and things like that, but realistically, it doesn't really always save the compressor. Sometimes it's other parts that go out that'll take a compressor out, like the TXV, if that goes out, that can also take a compressor out as well. It just overheats and, but generally they do keep anything from like any type of fire or anything that could start by the compressor just running and overheating. So
Mhm.
that's the primary part of the overload, I think, on the compressor, but.
So if they would add another pump to reduce the amount of stress on the ones that are currently there so that so that they wouldn't get so hot, would that be an option then, or?
I've made some changes as far as like maxing out temperatures and on thermostats. Sometimes the thermostats didn't have the breaks that they should have, because before you could turn a thermostat up to like 82 degrees or something like that. And I've kind of toned that down so that you can't do that anymore. And I
Okay.
think that's part of the reason why some of the compressors might have had issues is
Right,
the rooms were just heating and heating and heating, and that's hard on the compressors.
sure, yeah.
Hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I get it. Hey, great questions and thank you for the report. Anything else, Scott?
Yes, aside from that, the usual work orders have been worked on, from nursing stuff to building maintenance, whatever comes along, the typical stuff. We have an RFP out currently for the food service golf cart replacement, which the bids are due April 11th. It's a little ways out there, but I know, talking with Sophia, we've got at least we got one for sure, maybe two bids on the golf carts. I have not seen those. I won't see them until after April 11th. Other than that, Brady requested samples for the base trim so that we can get that one out there. Once we get the samples, we can take a look out, nail down exactly what we want to get. Then we can start getting pricing for that to move forward on replacing that scarred up trim around the houses. And along with that, we're working on a plan to get painting done in the houses. So that looks a lot better. There's spots on walls where wheelchairs have rubbed that are scuffed up, and we're gonna do some painting on those and get those fixed up and looking a lot better. Staying with that. Preparing for upcoming survey whenever that happens, but just make sure everything is, Brady's got his checklist of stuff that he goes through and make sure everything's working, up until the day they come. So that he's all prepared for that, and that's why he ends up getting some very minimal sites or no sites, which is great. Then we'll be shifting to outside work with nicer weather coming, lawn cleanup, and I know we'll have to do some more black dirt along the new sidewalks and some seeding, as that got to be late in the year, and over the winter, some of that got messed up with the snow removal. So we'll be working toward that. Other than that, everything's running smooth, knock on wood.
Anybody else? The Brady is your list for the survey about, checklist about that long?
Yeah, it's quite the list. It's a lot of things to go through.
Okay, thanks for coming today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yeah. Well, that's Scott, and then we get Carmen again.
Yeah, I will add one other thing to the environmental facilities report. One thing we've talked about for a long time, and it's been on our capital improvement plan, is a new sign, as the sign for the neighbors is not very visible from the road. Talking with Dan Dunbar a little bit about this, with the sale of the land in front of us, we're actually going to hold off until then, because my first question was, well, is our sign currently on the land that's being sold? Because I don't know exactly where it is. So when I talked to him about it, we're going to hold off on that. So that's still in the works, still a plan, but just wanted to give an update that we're going to wait and see, and who knows, maybe we'll get a free sign out of it or something. Wishful thinking, right? But so that's also in the plan, is a sign for the neighbors.
Okay, kind of staying on facilities for a second.
Yeah.
Replacing the trim, are you gonna start with the trim that's bad and then work your way around? Yeah.
Yes. We'll plan on starting with, I think most of the households have scarred up trim. The base trim that is currently on there is more of a paper pressed product. It's not actual wood. It's got a wood grain look to it. So at corner joints where you have a outside corner, that's where wheelchairs come around there, scuff it up, scar it, and then you've got the exposed paper type material. So we would look at, replacing, I think we'd probably end up, starting with a house, replace, and then keep working through, go like that, because it's, picking and choosing where it's the worst. I think you'd be hard pressed to find a good spot to start.
the house.
This was just, if we're gonna replace it all, we might as well start in a house, work through that house, and then go on the next house, and then keep working through like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so item G, so Leading Age Wisconsin and WAC, which is the Wisconsin Association of County Homes Advocacy Day at the Capitol. So a couple weeks ago, Leading Age Wisconsin, which we are members of, as well as I am on the board of, held Advocacy Day at the state capitol. So they do this every other year. They do it during budget years for the state. And it starts out with a morning of kind of prep work. They hand out these flyers. The green flyer that I gave you is one from them. So Leading Age gives us that, as well as they do kind of a morning advocacy 101 kind of session to help people who have not done that before, not talked to legislators, things like that, learn about what to say, things like that. They actually have some legislators come to that as well and share what they would like to hear from people. So it's a good learning experience and a good day. And then in the afternoons, we have set up meetings with legislators. So they do it so that it's kind of in groups. So all the long-term care facilities, it's not just nursing homes, but long-term care facilities in our area met together with our representatives that would represent us in that area. So there was 4 representatives that were invited. The 2 that were there was Representative Smith or Senator Smith, and then Representative Moses. So both represent our area, and it was good to be able to discuss long-term care issues with them. So the green policy sheet is, like I said, Leading Ages sheet. So that does include things outside of nursing homes. Some of these things don't necessarily apply to us because some of them are assisted living focused. But it basically goes over, first of all, saying thank you to the legislators because we did have a very unprecedented increase and change to the payment system in the last biennium budget. So first of all, saying thank you, and then basically asking for that to continue, which is what's currently in the budget. The biggest thing right now is the Medicaid cost to continue for this biennium is very big, and it is a hard ask. So instead of even asking for more, we're asking for it to continue because it is extremely expensive to continue the Medicaid program. So that is the biggest thing that we are advocating for is basically at baseline paying for Medicaid to continue as it is. We do have a payment system now that is not just percentage increases. So it would be based on cost increases. We would get increases, and that's kind of how it is across, it is how it is across the whole state for nursing homes. So the cost to continue that is very high. So that is what we're asking for. There's a couple other advocacy things on here. Like I said, some don't apply to us. So the minimum fee schedule for family care, that's an assisted living thing. On the back, there's some other things as well. Another priority is workforce. So things that aren't necessarily budget related. Some are somewhat budget related. So continuing with Caregiver Careers Program, that is something we participate in. So that is training for CNAs, which includes free training for CNAs as well as giving them bonuses once they work at a registered facility that's in that program. So that's a really important program that has been going on for many years now in the state of Wisconsin and has created thousands of CNAs through that program. So that's something we really want the state to continue. And there's some other workforce related things on there as well. So removing barriers to employing minors is on there. Something that hasn't affected us very much, but it has in other portions of the state, typically in bigger cities, is offering the CNA exam in other languages. So that's something that other states do. Wisconsin does not. So that's something we are advocating for, is offering the CNA exam in other languages. Challenging the CNA exam is another thing that has been pushed. It does happen in other states as well, where you don't have to take the CNA course. If you have worked as a caregiver for long enough, you can take the exam, and if you pass, you can be a CNA. Some states have it, some states don't. The state of Wisconsin has not done that thus far, but just coming up with different creative ideas to get more people into the workforce for us. Any questions on the leading age one?
Yeah, thank you, Carmen. On the, right here on this, where it says Direct Care Workforce Fund.
Mhm.
Is that like a state or a federal funded program that helps pay for the training of CNAs and different entities that we would hire then? Is there a program that uh, that you utilize to help with the costs that are incurred in training and
So it's not a program that we directly utilize. So there is funding that goes into direct care workforce engagement. So like the WIS Caregivers Career Program, that is part of the workforce funding. And then it's also part.
Whiz care?
Yeah, so WIS Care is the program that's on the backside. It's the program to create CNAs that get the bonus and the free training.
So that's something we do use,
Correct.
but it's part of the bigger
Correct.
pot that we
Yes.
don't use.
Yeah, so we can't directly like pull, it's not a fund that directly pays us. It's a fund that provides systems for creating skilled employees to fill jobs. And then in addition to that, the Medicaid reimbursement is directly related to workforce. So the cost to provide care. So when we do our Medicaid cost report, which is a very in-depth report that basically shows what we paid to take care of our people. That's actually why Jane isn't here today, is she's with the auditors helping prepare that report. So we submit that to the state every year. The biggest chunk of that is called direct care cost. And then that is what bases our Medicaid rates. And then the state is prioritizing putting more money into direct care specifically to pay for workforce.
see. See.
Supervisor Story?
Just to clarify though, now, is this Medicaid money that is coming from the Wisconsin taxpayers, or is it Medicaid money that's coming from the federal government that they are to distribute?
Both.
Okay, so, okay, that's what I was afraid of.
So Wisconsin is one of the few states that did not do Medicaid expansion, though. So this was a push for years to do Medicaid expansion, and basically that would be more federal dollars coming to our Medicaid program. We're one of, I believe it was 11 or 13, don't quote me on that, something close to that, states that didn't, which actually puts us in a kind of better situation now with the risk of federal funding going away, that we're not as reliant on it as some other states are.
And to clarify, your Medicaid costs are what, 80%? What was the percentage of Medicaid pay that in your facility?
Yeah, between 75 and 80 at any given time, our residents are on Medicaid.
And so there's that possibility that, well, yeah, so 70 to 80%.
Go ahead.
All right. So then the next sheet is the Wisconsin County Homes Association sheet. So when we were at the Leading Age Day at the Capitol, and we also had a Wisconsin County Homes Association meeting, which I was formerly the president of that group, but my term actually ended the day of this event, and we had a newly elected president. But we also gave the legislators this handout basically of what makes county homes different. So we piggybacked on their day since almost all county homes are also part of Leading Age as not-for-profit and government-owned entities work together. So this handout basically just goes over what makes county homes different. It also includes the WAC's mission statement, the difference in 5-star ratings based on payer type. The back has a list of different services that are typically offered at county homes. Granted, our facility does not offer most of these services. We have a more traditional skilled nursing facility than some other county homes that have separate licensures. If you think back to when this building was a nursing home, we had developmentally disabled and a psychiatric unit. Those were closed in, believe, the late 80s, early 90s. And then those folks moved out into the community. Some of our county homes in the state still offer those services, as well as other things like substance abuse services, specific traumatic brain injury units. There's some that have completely locked units. So this is a wide variety of services that county homes offer that are not seen in the private sector. But it doesn't mean that every county home offers those. In addition, we talked about the access issues in the state of Wisconsin, that many nursing homes are closing and have been closing for a long time. Fortunately, since, and this is actually talked about on the leading age sheet, since the change in payment system for nursing homes, the number of homes closing has significantly decreased. So that's a good thing, but we haven't had any new nursing homes either. So we're going to continue to have access issues, as well as we have a very large aging population. And then we just put a final consideration on there as well, for basically asking legislators for support of county homes. We don't have a specific financial ask or anything like that for budget purposes, but just keeping county homes in their forefront and supporting them when there is decisions to be made.
Yeah, Supervisor Story.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, if we were ever to have a house empty again, would one of these other services be something that we might be able to do for profit to where we would make money, like the psychiatric or would that be something we'd want to consider if we have that happen a lot? I mean, right now, I think we're doing fine. But if we were to need to look at a source of income?
It would be something we could look at. There is a lot to consider, especially with things like psychiatric households, is it would have to be locked off from the rest of the facility. So we might have larger costs due to construction costs, as well as their different licensures. So you have to be approved to have those. Historically, the state has been reluctant to approve things that are more restrictive. The push is to get less restrictive. That is why we closed those units years ago, was to be less restrictive. So they're very tough to get them to then go more restrictive.
Okay.
So it would be something we could look at, but there would be lots of challenges with it, I think.
Yeah, I'm not thinking you're doing so well. I mean, the reports have been very, very good, but just thinking, is that something we'd have to consider maybe down the road?
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a consideration at one point for crisis units, which there has been a push for those. So that would be probably our first look, would be a crisis unit. But again, the biggest concern that we have is when we have had closed households, it's been just that, a closed household. So those doors and everything still have access to the rest of our facilities. If we had a whole closed neighborhood, there would probably be more of a push for that, because we are just wanting to make sure that we are keeping our frail elderly safe as well, who currently reside in the other houses.
Just an editorial comment. The information that Carmen put on here, the stars and other information, these are things we should kind of keep at hand as committee members, because we really represent the neighbors of Dunn County. And when we go out and talk to our constituents and so forth, if we have the information at hand to show them that, I believe anyway, it's something that is very much needed, very well run, locally and in comparison with others. So at the same time, we're going to be talking about this in upcoming meetings. We're going to get some education that I've asked Carmen to do so that we can be advocates. And every time we get this kind of information, I think, okay, that's pretty neat. can I share this? And that's kind of our job too. So, thank you.
Yes.
Uh,
And just so you're aware, both Senator Smith and Representative Moses got both of these sheets, as well as every legislative mailbox at the Capitol has these sheets in them. So they could or should be informed as well. So even better to talk about them.
Carmen, did they commit to the state budget, supporting the state budget in that regard?
That's not really on the agenda.
Oh,
I think that's a real long process or something to talk about.
okay.
I can add that they were very receptive when we
They very
spoke with them.
yeah.
Yes, they were very receptive that it's a need. There was a very good conversation and discourse with both representatives about the need for both elderly care and childcare. There was a open conversation about that both ends of life are our biggest need in our state right now. So both representatives were extremely supportive and receptive to what we had to say.
That's
Oh.
kind of what you wanted. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
Mike?
Oh, sorry, yeah. Supervisor Lyon.
Thank you. Carmen, on this list of the services that county homes offer, what are the ones that are offered at the neighbors?
From this list, we have bariatric care.
Okay.
We will take some people with tracheotomy care, but it is very specific and it's very rare that we have that. We don't have an actual vent unit, but we will sometimes take a trach in very specific circumstances. We do have some people with developmental disabilities. We do not have a specific developmental disabilities licensure. That is, some homes have a separate like unit that is developmentally disabled folks. We do care for some, but it's not necessarily a unit or anything like that. We have post-acute rehab care. We have dementia care. We do not have a locked unit. So the fully secured, we are not licensed for a locked unit. Some county homes have actual locked units. We do complex wound care. We do not do protective placement at this point, and we do Meals on Wheels food provider.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Barb, for asking that.
Any other questions related to advocacy?
Great job doing it. And past president, I assume it was a learning process, but you're relieved?
Yes. Yeah, it was Wisconsin County Homes kind of had a hiatus during COVID. We stopped meeting for a long time, and then we had a few meetings in 2022 that were kind of just thrown together as the people who had previously been the officers of that group no longer worked at county homes or in the industry. So we kind of just threw it back together and picked it up from where we left off, and I got voluntold to be the president a little bit in a meeting I was only half at. And so it was a good learning experience. I did it for 2 years. But I'm not completely off the hook because apparently per our bylaws, the immediate past president is still on the executive committee for it. So still involved.
Okay, then I think we can go on to number 7, consideration for action to be taken by the committee, review of vouchers and financial reports.
All right, and I will be going over these today as Jane is with the auditors. So you have them in your packet. In my packet, it starts with the campus aging report. It looks good. It's actually gone down. There is not a huge number in the top numbers, which those are the ones that we're most concerned about, and our regular aging has stayed consistent. We have had higher census lately, so we do expect this to go up, but normally just in that bottom lighter blue color, that will be the current. So when that is higher, that's actually kind of a good thing because it means our census is higher because those are current bills that we are going to get paid. Any question on aging at all?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay. Next, we'll go to the campus census goals. our goals and the monthly averages. So as you can see for February, we were still below on the Medicaid, as we have been. We were above for private pay, which is interesting. We've not been above for many years, and now the last couple of months we have been. Medicare A, we're doing well. Veterans have been above our projections for quite a while. That's one that kind of just hit or miss. Sometimes we have a couple, sometimes we have a lot, but right now we have a lot of people on VA services. Another interesting one is that kind of gold color on the bottom. We have had an increase in Medicare Advantage plans or insurance plans. That is something that we anticipate to continue to go up. So these are the like Medicare plans that people can buy. So it's basically an insurance company is acting as a Medicare plan. So we have had an increase in that. Those are Medicare-like plans that we have contracts with. So this would be like Humana, United Healthcare, things like that, Security Health. So we've had an increase in those, and based on trends of other areas, those are going to continue to go up. Any questions on census at all?
Looks good.
All right. And now we will go to the financial report. Again, this is just 2024's final numbers. As a county, we are going to not have the new ones until the first quarter. So that will be next month. We will see 2025's numbers because the numbers are so skewed in the first couple of months that it doesn't give good data or good information. But this is where 2024 should end up. As I've mentioned now a couple of times, Jane's with the auditors, so those numbers could change a little bit based on audited numbers. But in terms of our payments and payments we've gotten in, this is where 2024 should end up. And with the actuals, which is with depreciation, $450,419 in the black, and then without depreciation, 1.1 million.
And just to comment, last time, the net was projected to be 389,000, so 450 is better.
Mhm.
So next month we get the new stuff. We don't get to keep raising the net.
We will, hopefully within the next couple of months, we will have the actual audited numbers. So maybe that one will be raised.
Okay. Okay, that's good to see. Nice work.
Are there any questions on the financials, the full report for the 2024 numbers before I move on? Okay. The next page is the agency staff report. So this is where we compare the cost of agency staff. We've kind of hit a plateau for costs for months. So this is still 2024 numbers, but I would say they're currently about the same. We are having about the same agency as Chris mentioned in the employment report. We had no agency interviews this month. We haven't had as much in and out of agency. We've had consistent agency staffing, which is great because then we're not spending more time training, things like that, because that's expensive as well. Because we do not just take an agency person and throw them onto a shift. So they get trained, like we have an internal employee get trained. They go through orientation because we want to make sure they're well equipped to care for our residents and know how we do things specifically at the neighbors before they're out on the floor. So that also saves money too if we can have consistent agency staffing instead of having them there for a short period of time and then having someone else new come in as well. And if we know that they're good and hard workers, we want to keep them too. Any questions on agency staffing?
Supervisor Laufer.
Yes, Carmen. Does the cost of the agency continue to increase consistently, or is it always staying pretty much the same?
It's staying pretty much the same. We actually just had a decrease in cost for one of our agencies. We had an increase during COVID because it was very difficult to even find agency staff. There was a time frame where the agencies didn't have staff either because there just wasn't enough people. So they bumped their cost up during that time frame. Now, Chris actually was able to negotiate a rate down because we were having multiple agencies say they have staff. So we asked our agency and said, hey, we have other offers. Could we lower the rate? And when I say we, I'm not taking credit. It was Chris Anderson that did that. So that was wonderful to lower our rate from one of our companies.
How many agencies are there to draw from?
We currently use 2 agencies. There's hundreds. I get multiple calls a day from different agencies that asking if we need staff. We've been pretty good with the 2 that we have. We have one that we get the majority of them from, and then we have a second one that we get a few people from. It is a little bit difficult to manage having multiple agencies, so we're pretty set on sticking with our 2 as long as we can get staff from them. And we've built really good working relationships with our contacts with them too, which is really important because say we have an incident with an agency staff member, we have good rapport with the company so that we can say, hey, we don't want this person here anymore. And they listen to us and they say, okay, sorry that happened. We'll find you someone new kind of thing. Versus if we were to go to a different company that may not be the same working relationship. So.
I just want to say also that I met one of your agency staff the other day at Mrs. Johnson's funeral, and she's a very nice young lady from Louisiana. She
Yep.
was. So I spoke with her at length, and I was very impressed with her and what she did there at the funeral.
great.
So,
Oh, yeah, Supervisor Lyon, and I appreciate
Can't
all of
really
you.
see.
I appreciate all of you mentioning it. And I don't want to be real formal, but it's helpful for people viewing online to know who's talking. So that's why I
Mhm.
say your names. So
Oh, yes.
I do know who you are, Barb.
I know you do.
Yeah.
We've known each other for a long time. Um, you know, back in the day, I used to uh, work for different temp agencies, like between semesters and, summer things. And I frequently was offered a permanent position. Just bragging. Anyway, does that ever happen with agency staff?
Yes.
Oh.
So there is things in our contract that say that we cannot poach their staff right away. So there's contractual agreements with the agency that when they come to us, we're not going to offer them jobs immediately. That being said, when they have worked with us for quite some time, they waive that. So when it comes to the contract, we would actually, if say you were a CNA, you came in, you were awesome. It's been a month and we say, we want you on staff. Per our contract, we would actually have to buy out a year's worth of their salary, basically. So we've never done that because that's extremely expensive. We have, on the other hand, had actually 2 staff recently in the last couple of months who have been agency staff with us for years. And the company has waived the buyout because they've worked with us for so long. So we've had actually 2 agency staff that have become internal in the last couple of months. Mhm. Any other questions on agency staff? And then on the back page, we have the senior meals. So this hasn't changed much. This is still the 2024 report. So this is just ins and outs of senior meals. As a reminder, senior meals is not intended to make a large income as we are billing the rest of the county. So it's intergovernmental between us and ADRC. So we are using it as providing a service as well. So we just make sure it covers the cost. And then the depreciation report is on there as well, which that would be the same as last month. Then the only other thing was the vouchers that were sent out. Did anyone have any questions on those?
Any questions? Supervisor Lawfer, yes.
Yeah, Carmen, I was going through the list here. It's a long list, but I underlined, bad debt, PCS care of $9,636.70. Is that pretty much typical?
I'm trying to find which line.
Well, it's right on the, very first,
First page.
administration.
Oh, okay.
Where it says bad debt.
So typically bad debt would be things that we've written off. I'm not sure exactly what that specific one is. I do know we had, one write-off that's probably what this one is from last month. That was something that was misbilled. And we were outside of timely filing. So the billing team tried to fight it and we weren't able to recoup it. It was something to do with, during COVID's peak time, someone that had positive for COVID was eligible for Medicare. And now Medicare is going back to review all of those. So it was actually a bill that was put out in 2021, I believe. And then Medicare just denied it this year. So they requested the funds back. So then we tried to bill Medicaid because that would have been their other payer source. And then Medicaid said, nope, that's timely filing. You can't do it. So we had to write it off.
I see.
That does happen. So we don't typically write off much. We try to recoup all of the funds, and that's why you see the aging report has some really old stuff on it. So we try our best to recoup funds. When it comes to something that is an insurance company, Medicare, Medicaid, anything outside of actually billing a person, those are things that once they say no, we know we probably aren't going to get it. So we would rather have it off the books. If there's something that is billed to an actual person that was at our facility or their family members, we keep them and then we try to work out payment plans, things like that. So some of those bad debts that are, or older debts in the aging, those are things that are being very slowly paid off, but we're getting payments on them.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Do you have any idea how many or how much we actually carry on the books as a general rule? I mean, going back, like you said, all the way to 2021, is there any amount of debt that we're carrying right now that we're not sure whether we'll ever get paid for or not? Or
So that would be on that aging report. So it changes regularly. I don't think there's a specific number that we cut it off on. But if you look at the aging report, our top line looks like it's between 1.5 and $2 million. But that includes our current aging as well. So all of those different colors are different buckets of how long they've been out there. Just that tiny dark blue bucket at the top is anything over a year. So not much.
Okay.
But we do our best to recoup things. And if there's something that we think we can get or at least get a portion of, we're going to try.
Thank you.
Any other questions on financials?
Financials or vouchers?
Yeah, I underlined, E.O. Johnson in the same administration thing of 15,458.16. What does that entail?
Yep, so that is our printing contract. So that would be an annual fee that we pay. So our printers are rented through E.O. Johnson. Every printer in the county is through that contract. So that's our portion of the E.O. Johnson contract.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And I had underlined a couple over on when you go to the next page on O&M of plants, operating and maintenance of plants. The heating and lights, segment of Northern States Power Company of 14,924.47. And then right below it, the natural gas of 3,510.62, which I understand those are, expenses incurred using those facilities or those entities. But I noticed down below, on operations and maintenance, you have the same heat and lights, 5705, and then natural gas, 829. Why are they separated? Maybe you could tell me, Scott, why are they separated in two different O&M of plants and then operations and maintenance? Why aren't they just combined together
That would be separated out per building.
per building?
Yep. So east, west and central all have separate meters, separate accounts for the Excel for electricity and gas.
Okay,
The central building is going to be more because it has the kitchen in it, so they use more natural gas, more electricity.
okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
Any other ones for me?
And that's okay.
Mhm.
Underline as many as you want.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll never know the answer unless I ask the question, so,
And then neither will we.
yeah.
All right.
So I appreciate you taking the time to explain those things to me and everything. It cleared that up.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else, Carmen, from the financials and vouchers?
I don't think so.
Well, then what we're looking for is a motion to accept the financial reports and the vouchers for this last month.
So moved.
Barb, Supervisor Lyon, and then Supervisor Story, first and second. Would there be any other questions? No, then it's a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. It passes. And does that bring us to an end? And our next meeting is?
April 24th.
Does anyone have any announcements? Other than please make sure you fill out the Dunn County Comprehensive Plan survey. Then we are adjourned. Thank you. Thanks for sticking through the whole thing, Rebecca.